now move to the next speaker, which is Councillor Del Grande.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As most of the times, I try to look at the debate and look at it objectively. And I ask myself this question. Has there ever been a time in your office as councillors where one of your staff members has said something to a constituent that all of a sudden you found you didn't agree with? And so your staff member said something, and that's not your position, which I think happens. It's an occurrence. It's happened in my office. And so the question is, what do you then do? I'm sure, I mean, the report that was written, certainly if I was the mayor, I'd probably blow a gasket, because this is part of his mandate. We talked about St. Clair, etc. And I think my reaction would be, go talk to where the buck stops. And in this case, the buck stops with this guy called Bill Stewart. He's the fire chief. He's just like us, the councillors. And he's had one of his underlings, a well-respected guy, I like him as well too, he wrote a report, but at the end of the day, he has to put his name behind that report. Now, what was said in the debate, and Councillor Shelley Carroll said to me over and over again, and I asked the question again just to verify, there have been 565 odd calls that have been made on this street. Okay? Now, if the report is as accurate as it proclaims to be, we should have had fire trucks that have blown tires. We should have had fire trucks that have rolled over. We should have had call times that were significantly delayed. So on the one hand, there's an opinion of one of your staff members, and then there's your opinion, because you've said, you know, that based on the information that you know, it doesn't jive. So as much as, you know, we want to talk about sabotaging and things, I mean, at the end of the day, I spoke about the St. Clair thing. And again, I always try not to be political from the point of view of left, right, and center, but always to try and look at the thing objectively and fairly, even though at times I have to agree with my good friend, Councillor Mamalady, and sometimes I don't have to agree with him. I disagree for various things, okay? So I look at this debate, and, you know, again, there have been some very valid points, because if we do want to delay this, there's a lot of money to be delayed. And again, I'm one of those people that talks about being physically responsible. So, you know, again, you weigh the physical responsibility with the issue of safety. But as I've said, I have not seen in the newspaper, I've not seen on television, I've not heard on radio, one fire truck and 565 odd calls during this time that this right-of-way has been put into place, that something has occurred. Now, I have a very small stretch of my ward that goes to Shepherd Avenue, a very small stretch. And I, like Councillor Lee, asked that question immediately when I heard this. I said, you know what? If there's a problem on St. Clair, could there be a problem here in Scarborough? Because then I wouldn't be doing my due diligence as well. And I started to ask some questions. Now, one of the things in the whole process is people have to sign off on things. Engineers have to sign off, the fire department, the transportation, all this kind of stuff. And I don't think people just sign off by closing their eyes and signing off. They look at these things. So if it wasn't the deputy chief, if it wasn't the chief, obviously there were the engineers and what have you, the people at the fire department that would have looked at the right-of-way and the trucks and the distance and the size, et cetera, and somebody signed off and said that it was okay. Okay does not necessarily mean it's perfect, because what is on paper and what happens in reality may be slightly two different things. So what do you do in the next best thing, okay? The lady called you and said something about a tree that should be cut or not cut. Your staff said something, the information is not right. What do? I know what I do. I get in my car and I go see the tree. And I say to myself, you know what? My staff member, I'm the councillor, there's an issue here with the tree, or there isn't an issue with the tree. That's, I think, what we all do. So then at the end of the day, when we're having this debate and you balance all these things, the question then becomes, what evidence is there to substantiate a particular position one way or the other? And I think we'd all be remiss, professionally, et cetera, both fire chief, both mayor, both myself, et cetera, if we entertain anything that was unsafe.
Move an extension. All in favor, opposed,
I don't see that in the actual on-the-street results. So this fire chief went out as a councillor to look at the road, and he took along the guy from the TTC. And they walked it, and they said, you know what? I think over here we can improve a little bit. We're not talking about millions of dollars. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking about some adjustments along this corridor. And at the end of the day, he signs off. And he's accountable. And if we have any faith and basis of the people that we put in charge, the people, our constituents that put us in charge, we have to sign off at the end of the day in our office. That's the way I look at this argument, this debate. Because you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I sit here in this chair a long time. I got a headache, I got a migraine. Even an aspirin would get a headache sometimes in some of the debates here. But the reality is that we have to set aside some of the, the St. Clair debate has been over and done with. It started with a $25 million project. It went to 108, and I know we had this thing with Councillor Mihevik gave me a shot with the hydro thing today because he saw how bad it is in Scarborough and the issues that I've raised. But at the end of the day, I think, again, I as a Torontonian am disappointed because we haven't city built. We should have been building a subway a mile a year, and we never done that. We haven't done that. Now we're starting to do something, and I'm excited about it because I see our city moving forward. I think it's wrong to base everything on a report that has no reality in what's happening on the street. And again, if you don't want the $2 million, we need the extension to the crown jewel at the zoo. Thank you very much. I can't read it. Thank you.